Welcome, everybody. My name is Andrew Patricio, and I'm going to be your presenter today at this webinar on how to use online and offline networking to grow your business. Over the last 25 or so years, I've run my own business, but over the last 20 years, I've been working with business owners just like you, encouraging them, motivating them, and educating them on how to build a successful business. And the one thing I've found which is very, very interesting is that many business owners, networking is not our favorite thing. And the reason is that some of us, actually many of us, are introverted, so we're not that comfortable with this whole networking thing. But we've also realized that often we don't have an option. That is how a lot of us pick up a lot of our business. We meet people in an event, we connect with them, we build relationships, and eventually they're buying our products or services. So networking is a great opportunity. I would even go as far as saying that networking is probably the most effective way for us to market our business. So that's the key thing. Another thing I noticed when I introduced myself is that I said I've been in business for 25 years. Then I was running through the numbers and I thought, actually, it's 30 years now. It's amazing. As you get older, the time flies. You even forget how many years you've been in business. So 30 years I've been in business. So why should we even network? I mean, what are the key benefits of networking regularly? And the obvious is we want to generate leads. Maybe we want referrals. We'll meet somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that can help us grow our business. We can share ideas and discuss business challenges. I don't know if you've been in the situation, you go to an event, you meet somebody, you find out they're a business owner. Straight away, you start discussing some of the challenges you're going through your business and can be really beneficial for you. You may meet new people, socialize, and expand your professional contacts. I find that when you move, especially those of you that have moved from the corporate environment to the small business environment, sometimes your contacts don't come with you. So really you have to build up this whole new database of people that you can connect with on a regular basis. And I encourage you to do this. This is where we start becoming successful as business owners, when we can pick up the phone, give somebody a call, and they can help us through the process. The other reason you do it is to raise your visibility and improve your brand. I work with a lot of young business owners, and I often say to them that you've got two brands. You've got the business brand, and you've got your personal brand. Whatever business you're on at the moment, that is your brand that you're going to be focusing on. But your personal brand is with you for the rest of your life. So maybe you'll move on to different businesses, but you've got to try and brand yourself. And I've found this many times in my years as a business owner, is that my contacts moved from business to business. So one minute I was a retailer, I had a certain amount of contacts. When I moved into the seminar business, those contacts were quite useful, and they helped me develop my business. So your contacts carry across different industries. So I encourage you to make networking a part of your marketing, something that you do on a regular basis. Now, I like setting myself targets. I've realized that's the way I keep focused and on track. And I encourage you to do exactly the same thing. You set yourself some specific targets or benchmarks or goals or whatever you want to call it. But you've got to make it part of your marketing plan. It's got to be something that you do on a regular basis. And I find sometimes when you've been in business for quite a while, we don't network as much as we should. And maybe 2016 is the year when you go back and start networking again. So set yourself some specific targets. Maybe one of your objectives is to meet 2 new contacts every month. So that's your goal. Over the next 6 months, over the next 12 months, you want to meet 2 new people. Maybe you'll decide, and this is something that I've started doing more lately, is attend business events. Go to a seminar or go to a conference or a trade show on a regular basis. And this really just keeps you updated with what's going on a regular basis. And it's amazing how much you learn. The other big opportunity is a major conference. And I've got to emphasize how powerful this is. A few years ago, and I haven't done it for a few years. Actually, last year I traveled. But I used to go to international conferences, and I traveled to different parts of the world to attend international small business conferences. And it's amazing what you learn First of all, it's a good idea to get away from your business for a while, but the amount of stuff that you learn at a lot of these conferences, especially if they're industry specific. So in my case, I was attending specific conferences about small business growth and development, and I found those to be really useful. Also from a networking point of view. Some of you may know already, but I've worked in 19 different countries. And it's amazing how many contacts you pick up at these conferences. You meet somebody, they work in a different country, they contact you, you build a relationship, and you can do business. Always very interesting. I mean, yesterday I had a very good example. I was speaking to somebody on the telephone, and she was saying, you know, one of her clients is running a conference in Croatia, and she's looking for some presenters. And I said to her, you know, I wouldn't mind going to Croatia. I haven't been to Croatia. That may be an opportunity. And those are how the opportunities come up. We meet somebody, you speak to them, we build up a relationship, and that's the way we grow our business. Another thing I encourage you to do is to have one coffee meeting a week. And the reason I put a coffee meeting is because some people will say things like this to me: should I regularly take clients out for lunch or for dinner? Or should I regularly play golf? And you can play golf. I mean, for some of you, it can be really good. I think it's too many hours, but that's okay. But for some of you, that may be your best source of networking, your best source of leads. Do that if that works for you. If you like going out for lunch with potential clients, I encourage you to do it. The point is, you don't have to do those. You can just invite a client out for a good cup of coffee at a small business coffee shop, and that works. But again, it's one of those habits, one of those routines that we get into, that we meet people on a regular basis. And the thing that I've found with a lot of these meetings we have, a lot of them really go nowhere. You meet somebody, you have coffee with them, you don't see an opportunity, but others generate a lot of revenue for your business. So try and identify those that are going to generate a lot of revenue for your business. So don't stop going out regularly with your clients. You don't have to be spending money going out for lunch or dinner or playing golf. You can have a coffee meeting, but just make it a habit. Another good habit to get into is just relationship building emails. You know, I try and send these out on a regular basis, just to past clients, to potential clients, to people that I've worked with in the past, just to keep that communication going. And you've got to be very, very careful, because it's so easy to become a little bit lazy. You know, in the beginning, we're sending out cards, we're phoning people, we're communicating with them. As our businesses grow, we sometimes forget about these basic things. So I encourage you, if you're not doing it at the moment, start seeking out events, start going to events on a regular basis, make it a habit of meeting 1 or 2 people a week for coffee, just to build up relationships. The other thing I encourage you to do is, if you're going to be networking, be strategic. So one of the things that I did, so some of you may know I've worked on a couple of different continents and moved around, which is a crazy thing to do. I don't encourage you to move around the world. It's fun, but very stressful. But when I did move, the times that I did, one of the first things I did was identify profile of people that I want to meet. And this has always been my theory, and you don't have to agree with it, but this is a theory I've always had, is that there are about 50 or 60 people in every city across the world, that if you know those people, you know everybody. And usually, if in my case, in small business development, it's usually somebody that's a small business advisor, it may be a banker, it may be a business owner, but if you can identify the people, the ideal profile of these people, it's going to make it so much easier for you to grow your database. So you find connectors as sometimes the right people, people that know other people. So develop a profile of these people you want to meet. The second thing you want to do is, maybe there are some specific names. For example, if you're in an industry, you're trying to identify the top 20 or the top 30 people, just write down their names. It's amazing when you meet some of these people, how they can open up opportunities for you. They can identify contacts, they can give you leads, they can help you through the process. So maybe writing people's names down is a good idea. Actually, especially when I travel to international conferences, some of these conferences, not all of them, will give you a name of the delegates that are going to attend before the event. And if they don't do that, they'll often give you a list of the speakers, whoever's going to be doing a presentation. So a really good strategy is to identify which of these speakers or which of these delegates you'd like to connect with and start, planning your strategy. I'm going to go to this person's presentation. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to walk up to him and ask a bunch of questions. So these are the type of things you want to do. And it opens up a lot of opportunities. I know over the years, especially going to big conferences, international conferences, I've met people that have worked with me on writing books, people that have worked with me on presenting seminars, and some of them have just become great friends. So these are some of the opportunities. The other thing you want to try and do is identify organizations that you may join. And again, it depends on what city you're in. Depends on what business you're in is going to influence what organizations you join. You want to find the most effective ones. As a small business owner, we do not have too much time. So we've got to make sure that time that we have, we've got to make it very effective. So identify organizations where your customers go to. So if you know, for example, that a lot of your customers play golf, well, maybe playing golf is the right thing. Just learn how to play properly first. So those may be the opportunities. Maybe your customers are part of the local Chamber of Commerce, or they part of these not-for-profit organizations in your city. Well, these are some of the places that you want to go to on a regular basis to meet these people. The other big opportunity, I've mentioned this a couple of times already, are conferences. I really like conferences as a place to meet some really high-profile people that you can build really good relationships over time. So identify events where your target clients hang out there. So even if you're introverted, it's going to happen. You're sitting around a table, somebody sits next to you, they ask you what you do, you find out that you, went to the same school together, or you like the same sport, or whatever it is, you start building a relationship. It's really important. What are some of the best networking events for small businesses? And again, we need to identify in our own community, in our own cities, in our own towns, in our own regions, we need to try and identify which are these. Your local Chamber of Commerce could be a big opportunity. The thing that I have found, and maybe this is just the nature of my business, is that the smaller the town or the smaller the city, actually the better the Chamber of Commerce is. So that's an interesting thing that I've found over time. Some of the bigger cities, it just gets too busy, the big companies dominate, and you don't get the same results. But again, it depends on your city. The other thing you can do is go to networking and referral organizations. I don't know if any of you have attended something like BNI. I've never attended, but I've heard small business owners speaking about it. So this is Business Networking International. I've heard small businesses talk about it, and they say it can be very effective. Okay, so it can be very effective joining events like, or joining groups like BNI. What they do is they meet on a regular basis, 12 different people from 12 different industries, and they basically share leads among each other. There's a couple of those out there, and you need to find these out. There's some that are developed specifically for small business. Try and find the ideal ones for you. And I want you to emphasize, I want to emphasize the importance of going to events that you get results. You don't want to be spending your time at events where everybody's trying to sell stuff to everybody else and you don't get any leads. So just try and find the right events for you. Other people will find things like Rotary clubs or Lions Club, or there's just so many, I can't even think of all the names, and I probably don't even know all the names of all these organizations, but some of those organizations are really good, especially if you can get quite involved in community events. You meet some quite high-level people at those organizations. So these are some of the opportunities. The one lesson I've learned over the years, even though I hate joining committees and, some of these, well, they meet on a regular basis and they discuss different things, even though I don't like joining those, often that's your way into large companies if you're trying to target them, because some of their VPs or some of their directors will be part of these events, and it's a big opportunity for you. So think about organizations like that. And the others, as I mentioned earlier on, things like trade shows, I find very effective. And often small business owners will ask me, when I go to a trade show for the first time, should I should I get a booth? The answer is usually no. I would say, you know, the first time you go to a trade show, I would encourage you just to walk the trade show. You know, maybe collect a couple of business cards, see what type of people you meet up with there. That's what I'd encourage you to do. But you know what, some of you're going to go to a trade show, it's going to be very effective for you. Again, I think it goes into the planning. So trade shows could be very effective. So Janelle's asked me a good question here. She said, what are your thoughts on speed networking events? Actually, you know what, I've been to a few. I really like speed networking events. Let me tell you why I like speed networking events. Is people don't believe this, but I'm very introverted. So speed networking events actually are a good opportunity, especially if you go to a big conference and they start off the event with a speed networking event. That is where you meet people. They'll let you meet like 10 or 20 people just for 1 or 2 minutes. And I found speed networking events to be very effective, okay? So they work for me because of my personality. I'm not sure if they work for everybody. But because of my personality, because I'm introverted, I don't like just randomly introducing myself to people. It's just not my nature. I really like speed networking events. So if you can identify some speed networking events, maybe that's a good opportunity for you, a great idea, and something that I like doing again when I go to big conferences. So what are some of the people we meet at these conferences? You know, sometimes you'll meet customers. Sometimes you'll meet suppliers. You could meet business advisors. There's always a bunch of those at these events. Or you could meet business or joint venture partners. I know my first partner in BizLaunch, I met at an event. I gone to volunteer at an event. I met this guy. We started communicating. We started building up a relationship. And eventually we formed a partnership, which was BizLaunch. And then eventually I bought him out. But the point is that it was at an event that I met him. So there are great opportunities out there. Another one is angel investors. You know, I've spoken to quite a few young people that have raised capital. I don't know why I'm saying young people. I mean, older people too. But a lot of people that have raised capital. And usually it starts off by going to a regular event where angel investors will hang out. You start building up a relationship with them, and eventually you can raise capital. And it's a very good strategy because investors go through three different steps. The first thing is they get to know you. They meet you a couple of times. They get to know you. The next thing they do is they may get to like you. You met an investor once or twice. They've got to know you. They get to like you. And the third thing is they get to trust you. And that is when business gets done. So angel investors start investing in a business when they trust you. But there's a process that you need to go through. You need to go to the right event. You need to get to know them. They need to get to like you. And then once they trust you, they'll lend you money. So most of the people that we need to help us develop our business, we can meet at networking events. Whether it's customers, whether it's advisors, whether it's angel investors, it could be a really good opportunity. So one of the questions Laura's asked me is, what sort of events are angel investors at? Okay, so in most regions, there are angel investor groups. So if you just go to Google, for example, and just type in angel investors in whatever state or whatever province you are, there's an organization there. So that's your starting point. Start off with angel investor groups, going to the events, listening to some of the pitches, and start building those relationships. Sometimes these angel investors you'll find at your local Chamber of Commerce, but it really depends on what size city you're in. So Laura, I don't know what city you're in, but if I knew what city you're in, I'd maybe be able to give you more detailed information. So it really depends, but there are groups of angel investors that meet on a regular basis. Okay, so Laura said you're in Toronto. In Toronto, we got an angel organization. Actually, we got a few in Toronto. If you just Google angel investors Toronto, you'll find events where they regularly pitch. Okay. There are even newsletters that get distributed regularly about angel investor. I actually got one this morning. Somebody sent me one about a pitching event coming up. So these are some of the opportunities. But you've got to attend these events. Some of them are going to be really good. Others are going to be a waste of time, and you'll work it out really, really quickly. So let's say you go to an event. So you've decided, you know what, this networking is one of the things that I'm going to do. It's going to be one of the marketing tools of mine. what do you do? The first thing is arrive early. And maybe this is an Andrewism, but I'm paranoid about arriving late at events. So make sure you arrive early so you can start communicating, you start shaking hands, you can start meeting people. The other lesson I've learned is you don't want to be hanging out with people you know. So let's say you go to an event and there's somebody you know there, and you know we're inclined to want to hang out with them. And I've learned this lesson because one of my actually good friends now, and somebody that I used to travel internationally with to different conferences, he would present different topics and I'd present at these conferences. The first day or two, we'd always say, you know, let's meet up and you go your way and I'll go my way, and we make a couple of contacts. I think it's a really good strategy. So if you meet people in an event and you know you can't make money out of them, you might say to them, you know what, I want to meet as many people as I can, and we'll connect up a little bit later on. The other lesson I've learned, which is a very important lesson, don't try to sell to people the first time you meet them. You don't know enough about people the first time you meet them. So keep that in mind. Your objective the first time you meet somebody is to ask them questions and listen. Let me say that again, and I'm going to say this a few times in my presentation. Is the first time you meet somebody in an event, your objective is to ask questions and listen. You want to try and understand what do they do, what business they're in, and more importantly, how you can help them. So think about that. The other thing, get into a habit, and again, this is maybe an Andrewism. I'll go to events and I'll get my business cards mixed up with people that I've met. Just get into a habit of having a dedicated pocket where you have your personal business cards and another pocket where you put in the people that you met. And obviously turn off your phone. Little things, but very important things. Now, how do you introduce yourself when you go to an event? And I'm going to give you a very good example. Well, I think it's a very good example. The first thing is, make sure you speak slowly and clearly. And if you're anything like me, I sometimes speak too fast. And the problem is, if you have an accent like me, is that sometimes people don't hear your name the first time. So just get into a habit of telling people your first name and your last name very clearly. Even if they don't remember your last name, at least your first name. Tell people your company name if they ask, and more importantly, explain to them briefly what you do. That is what you want to do. You want to explain to them very briefly what you do. But the key thing you need to understand is nobody cares what you do. So even when you go to events, and I don't want to burst your bubble, but even when you go to events and people say, I'm pleased to meet you, they're actually not pleased to meet you. They say that to everybody. So understand that. But nobody cares what you do. Remember this for the rest of your life. Even though they act as though they care what you do, nobody cares what you do. You're right. I think this facial reaction is a really good one. She's thinking to herself, what do you do exactly? Because the problem with a lot of us, and this happens, is even when we introduce ourselves, if somebody says to me, what do you do? And I say, I'm in the technology business, that really doesn't say anything. So that's the first thing. Remember, nobody cares what you do. The second thing, and some of you might have already noticed, there's a acronym at the bottom here, and this acronym says, what's in it for me? And it's very important that you think about that. Whenever you are with a client, people want to know, why should I even speak to these people? So WIIFM stands for, what's in it for me? So think about this all the time. Whenever you meet somebody, you ask them what they do, you ask them a little bit about your business, and then you tell them how you can help them. That is the key thing. So this is a very simplistic example, but I'll show you an example that you could use. Let's say we went to an event, you were there, I asked you what you do, you proudly say that you run your own business. I might say, hi, my name is Andrew, and I help companies market their products or services to small business owners. So I may say that to you. okay? Again, it depends on what you do, how I introduce myself. So that's the key thing. It depends on what you do, how I introduce myself. And I'm going to give you a very good example. Well, I think it's a good example. Maybe because it's my example, I'm going to give you a very good example. So earlier on, I was saying to you that I've worked in 19 different countries. And one of the countries that I've worked in is in Russia. Very, very interesting. Very interesting country. I worked there a few times. Not for a long time. I went there for a week, worked on a project, went back, worked on a project, usually just short-term projects with an organization based out of Denmark, another organization based out of Switzerland. And I was at a conference in Italy. So people often say to me, you know, how did you manage to get work in Russia? And I like telling a story because it's actually quite a good example of how you're in the right place, right time, you listen, and you get the business. So I was in Turin at a small business development conference, and we were at the conference the whole day. At the end of the day, I decided, you know what, I was going to go and sit down at a little restaurant near the water and just watch people running. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Italy, but there's so many beautiful people in that country. So I was sitting, watching beautiful people running, minding my own business. Anyway, so I decided I needed something to drink. I went to the pub and I asked the guy, how much is a beer and how much is a bottle of water? Because I really wanted to drink a bottle of water, just in case you think I have a drinking problem. I know some of you are thinking, you know what, this guy drinks on his own, he's probably got a drinking problem. Anyway, so I asked him the price of water, I asked him the price of beer, and really, a beer was a much better investment. So I decided to buy my own beer. I sat down on my table, drinking my beer, minding my own business, and watching these people running along the water. There were these two guys sitting on the table right next door to me. Their names are Peter and Alexander, a Dutch guy and a Russian guy. And they were having a conversation about a project they were working on in Russia, in a city called Nizhny Novgorod. I was minding my own business, not listening to their conversation, because my mother always told me not to eavesdrop on other people's conversations. Anyway, so these guys were having this conversation. They were talking about this project. But the one thing I heard that I thought was a big competitive advantage, they said, the one guy said to the other guy, we really need to find a consultant that has worked with women in business over the years, somebody that specializes in that business. And I'd worked on quite a lot of projects, specifically with women in business. And I know some of you online are going to say that nowadays it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, everybody runs a business the same way and everybody gets the same advice. And I disagree with you, but that's okay. That's an argument for another day. Anyway, so this is what they were speaking about. They were speaking about this project that they were working on, that women were learning how to run their own businesses, highly educated, all that type of stuff. Anyway, so the one guy, a very talkative guy, Peter, he leaned across and said, don't you want to come and sit on our table with us? And I said, sure, why not? Carried my own beer, sat down, and I said to the guy, to both of them, I said, what do you guys do? And Peter said, well, I'm a consultant, and I work on projects in Nizhny Novgorod in Russia. I said, that's very interesting. And then Alexander said, well, I work for Peter, and I'm working on this project too. I thought, that's very interesting. Then they went ahead and they asked me, what do you do? And I said, I'm an expert in training women in business. They said, really? We've been looking for somebody just like you. And that is how I worked on my first project in Russia, the first project. So I say to people often, you're sitting in the right place at the right time, drinking a beer, minding your own business. Somebody asks you a question, you give them the right answer. That's the way you pick up international work. And people say, surely it can't be that easy. Well, maybe it's not that easy, but that's what happened to me. That's exactly what happened to me. And that is how I started working internationally. Actually, it was the first international country I worked in, and then I worked in a whole lot after that. So you understand that it's not about what you do. It's about how you introduce yourself. So, for example, if I'm an accountant and people ask me, what do you do? I have two options. I can tell them I'm an accountant, which they don't care about, or I can say to them, I help small business owners like you save money on your taxes. So really, that is what I would say, because I know you're a small business owner. I know this is a topic that you may be interested in, and that's why I'll say that. If you're a publicist or a writer, you might say, I help business owners get free publicity. Or if you're a financial advisor, I show people how to retire on a low salary, which is often the situation with small business owners. We always earn too little, so we get low salaries. So meeting somebody like this might be interesting. So the key thing is you've got to try and identify. You've got to try and identify what is it that people want. Felicia asked me, as a real estate agent, how would you suggest I introduce myself? And this is what I would say to you, is if you're a real estate agent, you say to people, I try and find people their dream home or their perfect home or the perfect home for them and their family. Whatever it is, just say it in a really nice way, you know, because then people will understand. Okay, so the key thing you've got to understand, and somebody's mentioned here, what I'm talking about is called the elevator pitch. I don't care what you call it. You can call it whatever you want. All I'm saying is it's a short sentence. The only problem I've got with the elevator pitch, Brenda, is that sometimes it's too long. You know, people have a 30-second thing, and they'll say things like, you know, I help small business owners save money on taxes. Some of our clients include this, that, and that, and we've been doing it for 10 years. For me, that is too long. So you want to cut it short and try and get it across in one sentence. That's what I recommend you do, okay? So try and summarize it short, one sentence. People may ask you more questions about that later on, but the point is you want to keep it simple. That's exactly the KISS principle. The other thing you must learn to do, so the part I mentioned about that story about working in Russia, the reason is I knew what the customer wanted. Now, we don't always know what the customer wanted because we don't always eavesdrop other people's conversations. And I'm not suggesting that you should eavesdrop other people's conversations. It worked for me, but I'm not suggesting you should do it. But the lesson I learned from that situation was you need to ask questions. Ask people, what do you do? Who is your ideal client? How did you get into this business? What are your products or services? Actually, the more you get them to talk, the better it is. Let me say that again. The more you get them to talk, the better it is. And follow this very, very simple rule. A very simple rule. And most of you can count up to 3, up to 2, so it's a very simple rule. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in proportion. Just remember this for the rest of your life. I even say to small business owners when they're going to negotiate, I've got a very good example of 2 young business owners now that I'm working with, and they're negotiating with older people with more money. And I said to them, when you go to the meeting, just observe each other. If the one person is talking too much, just kick them under the table, because you don't want to be talking. You want to be listening. The best listeners sell more. Let me say that again. The best listeners sell more. So learn to listen. 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in proportion. Some of you talk too much, and you know who you are. When you go to an event, take somebody with you and give them permission to kick you hard on your shins when you talk too much. Ask questions and listen. Very, very powerful. Other little tips that will work well for you when you go to networking events. Always say hello to people. You know, greet them, smile and shake hands. If any of you work, for example, in some of the Eastern European countries or some of the countries in the East, I would encourage you, before you go and work in these places, just learn a little bit about the culture, the way people do things. I know in Russia, when I first worked there, the first day I got there, they said the tradition was that you had to share a bottle of vodka with the people of the house. And I got so drunk that the next morning I woke up with a really bad headache. So I'll never do that again. But I should have read a book before I went there and realized you don't have to drink the whole bottle. You just need to be polite and have 1 shot. Anyway, so be first, and say hello. Smile and shake hands. Interesting. In some of the Eastern countries, you don't shake hands, you bow, whatever it is, just learn. It's just a fun thing learning. And if you mess up, that's okay. Apologize and, tell them that you didn't read enough books before you came. Maintain eye contact, very important. In the Western way of doing things, depends on where in the world you work. I've worked in some Southern African countries, and eye contact is not something that you do. Again, you've got to understand the culture, the environment, if you're going to be working in different countries, in different things, which is not the most common thing. But I encourage you to do it. There's so many opportunities internationally out there for all of you. Have you been to this event before? Is maybe something you'll ask. The other thing that I find is very, very powerful is find something that you have in common. This is a very, very good idea. And I was actually just before I started the seminar, I was reading something about this introverted, maybe an email that came to me, about this introverted business owner. And he was saying that he hates going to events, because people talk about random things. And he mentioned also because he's introverted. And he was saying he went to this event and he met this guy, and he went to the same school as him, and they studied under the same professors or whatever, and they became the best of friends. And that is often what happens. Doesn't matter where you work, whether it's locally or internationally. You want to find something in common. We tend to do business with people we like, tend to do business with people that we have something in common with. For example, I was listening to an example this week where somebody said they went to a meeting and they're a great soccer player. They started speaking about soccer, and it's amazing how well the relationship started off because they had this interest in the same type of sport. So try and find something you have in common with people. Just ask questions. Try and build relationships. I mean, if people have kids, they love speaking about their kids. I mean, you don't want to be speaking about their kids for hours, but the point is that these are some of the things that help build a relationship. Really, you want to keep the conversation going is what you want to be doing when you meet somebody. Another good idea, I mean, you don't want to move to every event, but one of the things that really frustrates me is when you go to a conference and they give you a name tag and it turns around. Then nobody can see your name. Or they have to really come close to you to see your name, which can be really dangerous. Not dangerous, but I mean, you don't want to be looking too close at people's name tags because they might think you're a bit weird. Anyway, so wear a name tag. Something where people can see your name, then they can call you by your first name. And it's amazing when you remember people's names, it just makes it easier, not so embarrassing. So maybe wear a name tag. Dress smart. Really, it's 2016, but I still think dressing, not too fancy, but, looking twice in the mirror before you leave is always a good idea. Polish your shoes, especially the men. Some of these men have got no idea. They don't polish their shoes, they don't clean their nails, they don't comb their hair, they look like a bunch of... Anyway, so polish your shoes. Don't drink. Maybe one drink. I'll let you have one drink. One beer, one glass of wine, whatever it is. But you don't want to be known as the person that goes to these events and it's famous for getting drunk. You don't want to have that reputation. Don't eat garlic. Even those of you that are from Southern Europe, I know just for one day in your life, don't eat garlic. There's nothing worse than going to an event and somebody speaking to you, geez, and their breath just smells of garlic. Take some breath mints with you, and this whole thing again, don't talk too much. Most of us, let me say, all of us talk too much. So keep quiet and listen for a change. You'll learn so much. This is one of my most important rules. And I'm not saying it has to be exactly 24 hours. But come up with a rule that you are comfortable with. You go to an event, you meet some really interesting people, you follow up. Is it 24 hours? Is it 48 hours? Is it whatever you're comfortable with. My most comfortable thing is 24 hours. That's what I'm really comfortable with. So somebody's just asked me, what do you mean dress smart? When I say dress smart, the basic rule is dress just as well as your customer or the people that are going to be there or a little bit better. That is what dress smart is, okay? Just as well as everybody else or a little bit better. That is the key rule. So follow up within 24 hours. Make sure you do that. Follow up within 24 hours. you get back to somebody. And I think that's a great little strategy. But do what works for you. Do what works for you, and that is the key idea. Focus on that and stick to their guideline. If you've got any employees, make sure that they do exactly the same thing. Make sure that your employees do exactly the same thing as you, is that follow-up. And I'm paranoid about this because I can't tell you how many times small business owners will say to me, you know what, I went to a conference and I meant to phone people back, but I've just been too busy. It really makes me angry. So follow up. You want to be Mr. or Mrs. Reliable. That's really what you want to do. Focus on building relationships. After you meet somebody for the first time, set up an appointment to have coffee. In a really nice coffee shop, small business owner makes really good coffee. That's where you want to go. Okay? I really don't mind if you go to one of the brands, but that's where you want to meet people. The other lesson you've got to learn is people do business with people they like. So you want to be Mr. Nice Guy. That's what you want to do, because nice people get the business. And the other thing is that people like people that help them. So you want to be helpful. And it also feels good. I find as a business owner, one of my favorite things is helping other people. And the reason I do it is a bit selfish, is because it makes me feel good. So make sure you do that on a regular basis. Regular follow-up, okay? Somebody said to me, what are the best ways to follow up? And I'm going to give you an answer to that. Before you meet somebody, a couple of guidelines. Make sure you do your research. So if you're coming to meet with me, just go to my website, maybe Google my name, see what I've done. Just a little bit of information is what I'd encourage you to do. Check them out on LinkedIn. So go to their profiles, check them out on LinkedIn. Maybe see a couple of their interests, what companies they've owned, where they've worked, are some of the strategies. And it really helps you when you're going to meet somebody if you know what they do. Okay? Visit their website and write down a few questions. So you might take a list of questions is what you do. Okay? So somebody said, what is your recommendation for me if I do not drink coffee or beer? I don't mind what you drink. Drink tea, drink water, whatever it is. The idea is not to drink alcohol or to have caffeine. The objective of the meeting is just to share and communicate in a non-threatening environment. So that is the objective. What you drink or not drink is totally irrelevant. It's just what we do. Okay, hot water with lemon. There you go. Janelle's come up with a great idea. Hot water with lemon. If you're on a budget, it's usually free. There you go. Or ask for the hot water first. They'll give it to you free. And then afterwards, ask for the lemon. Then you're guaranteed it's free. Now, how do we follow up? And there are a couple of really good ways. And I think this is something can be very effective. You can phone people. Just pick up the phone and say, hi, Andrew. It was great meeting you yesterday. I look forward to our next meeting. If you have any questions, please give me a call. Oh, and in the meantime, I've sent you an article that I thought may be of interest to you. So that's something that you could be doing. So phone. Another way is email, and especially when you've got quite a large database. But make sure you personalize it. I know I've got clients that some years will do business with me and other years won't do business with me, but I'll send them an email, just a random email, say, hi, how you doing? Just checking how things are going. And it's amazing how happy they are that you've actually remembered them. Another great strategy, and I find some business owners do a really good job of this, they send out a card. I know I work with somebody based in San Diego, and she's really good. Every now and then she'll send me a handwritten card, and I don't always read the card, but I appreciate the effort she takes. Actually, I do read the card, but I appreciate the effort she takes to write me a personal card, and I've been doing business with her for 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 years already. Another big opportunity, let's use an example. Let's say you want to communicate with somebody and you don't really have a reason, okay? You might say, for example, the other day I was thinking about you You don't have to put in the sentence in a non-creepy way, because somebody did that to me last week. One of my students said, I was thinking about you in a non-creepy way. They put in brackets. You don't even have to do that. Just say, I was thinking about you, and I thought you'd be interested in this article. Okay? So that's a great way of doing things. Or invite them to an event. So these are all great opportunities to connect with people. But really, the thing that I want you to understand is that you want to do everything possible to maintain this relationship, to grow this relationship, and to improve this relationship. Is really what you want to be doing. So think about that. Is there a way that you can build this relationship? Help people, be nice to people, and build that relationship over time. So I believe, and maybe you disagree with me, but a database is gold in your hands. Once you have enough people's names, enough people's email addresses, you just focus on that market. So make it a habit of collecting people's names, their addresses, their email address, their company, their position, any of their interests, maybe a little story about them. The more you know about me, the better it is. So if we meet up and you know that I've got two great-looking kids, obviously, and you say to me, how's your sons, or how's Daniel, or how's Marco, or whatever it is, these are things that really help open up the conversation. Some of the people you want in your network are people in PR. Why people in PR? They know everybody. In October last year, I was working in St. Martin, and I met this PR woman, and she was a great woman. I really liked her. But in 5 minutes, she told me her whole life history. So they know everybody. She knew everybody, and she knew everything and whatever. So they know everybody. She knew the presidents of half the countries in the world. Always fascinates me. The other people you want to go know are connectors, and everybody has these people. You're looking for somebody, you're not sure who to contact, you phone these people and say, listen, do you know somebody or know somebody that knows somebody? Those are connectors. They love doing this, they're proud of it, that they know everybody. Media people. The other one is successful business owners. I think, successful business owners can really help you, especially if they like you. So they are somebody that you should be communicating with on a regular basis. The other one is advisors and mentors. I always encourage business owners to at least have one mentor, maybe even two. And these are people that you reach out to that have really good contacts and a great opportunity. And the other one is journalists. So these are some of the people you want in your database. The other big opportunity, I think, is to use something like LinkedIn. And I think I do use LinkedIn well, but I know I could use it much better. First rule is sign up and develop a profile online. Okay, so that's the first thing. Develop a profile online. Highlight your skills and achievements and add context. As a business owner, our skills and achievements are really project-based. Okay, so I worked on this project, I worked on that project, and that's really what you want to do. And you can use it to find customers, to find employees, to find suppliers. It is a great way to connect with people. So I encourage you to do that. I'll give you a very good example. Well, I think it's a good example. So when I traveled to Russia the second time to a city called Kaliningrad, I went through Moscow airport. And if anybody's ever been to the Moscow regional airport, it's one of the scariest places for me in the world. Maybe not for you, but for me, it was really scary. So I decided, because I was arrested at the airport, and I'm not really into going to jail anyway, I was arrested at the airport, and they let me go eventually, because obviously I negotiated my way out. But I decided I prefer not to fly through Moscow airport. I went onto my LinkedIn profile, because I worked out there was a flight from Riga in Latvia to Kaliningrad, and that's exactly what I did, is I flew through Riga. And while I was there, I found a contact on LinkedIn, communicated with them, a really nice guy that's a lawyer in Riga, and I presented a seminar at the University of Stockholm in Riga. So I think LinkedIn is a very powerful thing if you use it properly. It's a great way to connect with people. It's a great way to message people. So even if you don't, do business with people, add them to your LinkedIn profile. You can connect with their people, and that's really what you want to try and do. So let me just summarize quickly. Try and identify the events that your customers or potential customers go to. That's rule number one. Secondly, whenever you go to an event, learn how to introduce yourself. Remember, nobody cares what you do. People care about what you do for them. And if you think about this and you go to enough events and you shake enough hands and you're a nice enough person, the majority of your business can come from networking. So I encourage you to use this, build a successful business, make millions of dollars, and I'll be very happy. These strategies are simple but very effective. Use them, and I know you can use them to grow your business.